Now, we also have some exciting news here. We have a little update from Terry Smith. He's one of my favorite investors. I think that he's an interesting person to follow and to look at his investment philosophy. He's all about the three-step simplistic strategy of buying good companies, not overpaying for them, and then holding them long term. That's the goal. So he tries to accomplish those three simple steps. The strategy gets a lot more in depth, but that's the basis of it. And Terry Smith has outperformed the market for a great deal of time. But he's recently run into some issues. He's actually not doing too great this year. So I want to give an update on his performance and some of the trades that he's made. Now, he provides a table here of performance that shows the first 6 months of performance from the Terry Smith portfolio, and it's 8.5%, which is underperforming the S&P 500 this year. Even the MSCI World Index, which is also not doing as well as the S&P 500, is only up 8.9%. So that's what he uses as a comparator. I use the S&P 500. I think the S&P 500 is more difficult to beat than the MSCI World Index. So I'm using a more difficult comparator. But either way, the returns here this year so far are not great. 8.5% is sizable underperformance. But we can't judge Terry Smith just by a short period of time. Over a longer stretch of time, he has very strong performance, beating out most hedge funds, most super investors, with an annualized return of 15.6% since inception of his fund. That is very strong performance. Performing over 15% for that long of a period of time is difficult for most investors to do. So we have to give credit where credit is due. He's been doing great so far, but he's running into a little bit of trouble this year. Now, he goes over the companies that have helped the gains the most over the past 6 months, Meta Platforms being the first one. This one has added 3% to its portfolio gains over that time period. Now, he says at this stage last year, Meta was one of our largest detractors, and we wrote that Meta stock now trades at a free cash flow yield of 8.7%. At this level, it's either cheap or a so-called value trap. We will let you know when we find out, but we are inclined to believe it is the former. We have now had at least a partial answer to that question, with the stock up 70% over the past year, although we are too paranoid to ever declare victory. So he's pointing out that he held on to Meta, which I think it's important to point that out. He invested in Meta, it went down a lot, and then the company recovered. Microsoft has also performed really well over the past 6 months, so he points that out as well. L'Oreal continues to impress them. We have other companies in their portfolio that aren't doing so well. Waters, Estee Lauder, ADP, Mettler Toledo, Philip Morris, all these companies have been detractors from the portfolio. Now, one of the areas where I believe that Terry Smith messed up, this was something that I think was a mistake, was he sold out of Amazon at nearly the bottom of the Amazon dip. So Amazon went down like crazy, and he held on to Meta, but he sold out of Amazon. He says the most noteworthy item of turnover was probably our sale of Amazon, which had begun purchasing only in July of 2021. The immediate cause for the sale was our concern over the potential capital misallocation. The relatively new CEO, Andy Jassy, enunciated some principles of investments. So these were the things that Andy Jassy points out of where they like to invest in as Amazon. He says that our view was that there's a lot to like about this statement, and it gave us common comfort in purchasing the stock we had shied away from before. However, it always is easier to talk the talk than it is to walk the walk. And the CEO's pronouncement that he wanted Amazon to seek routes of bigger investment in grocery retail ran counter to all these principles. In our view, grocery retail has none of these characteristics, and Amazon has already stubbed its toe in the sector with the Whole Foods acquisition. So that's the first argument Terry Smith gives against Amazon, and I just want to comment on a few things here. Obviously, there's the indication it was a mistake because Amazon is up 51% year to date. This company has been a massive winner. If Terry Smith had kept it within his portfolio, it would be one of the top 5 contributions to his gains this year. So that stings a little when you sell a company like that before a huge rally in the stock. He also mentions that the CEO of the company is relatively new. And that's true, he is a relatively new CEO, but he leaves out that Andy Jassy has been with the company for over 20 years. Andy Jassy was the one running AWS. He was the one that built that business into what it is today, the most profitable portion and most important portion of Amazon. So I think just describing him as a relatively new CEO, it's true that he's a new CEO, but there's a lot more context behind that. And it is true that Amazon has stubbed its toe in grocery retail. That's a phrase that he uses there. But this phrase could be applied to the entire history of Amazon. When has Amazon not stubbed their toe doing something? That's something that you have to get used to with Amazon. They will go into different bets that won't work out because they're always trying new things. But when they do work out, they work out big. Where companies choose to invest outside of a powerful core franchise in which they already have expertise, we believe they are likely to destroy value. And especially so when they're entering a sector which already has poor returns. A similar thought process has led us to exit Adobe. Adobe's another one where I believe that Terry Smith made a huge mistake exiting this company. He missed out on another company that's rose up 50% in just the past couple of months because he exited this position off of concerns about capital allocation. So Terry Smith missed out on both the gains in Adobe and Amazon, two of the biggest winners that would have been in his portfolio because he sold out of them this year. And my criticism for Terry Smith would be the rule number 3, the do nothing. It seems like he's trying to analyze these companies a lot. He's making quick changes on them based on minor disagreements in capital allocation, and he's selling core businesses at attractive valuations that have incredibly good fundamentals because of these minor disagreements. And in so, he's missing out on 50% plus gains. Now, finally, the last bit where I disagree with Terry Smith here is he says where these companies choose to invest outside of their powerful franchise in which they have already expertise in, we believe they are likely to destroy value. That is a phrase that I do not believe applies to big tech. They've all invested outside of their core franchises into various products and still have had high returns. Now, I don't want to be overly critical. It's always easy to judge in hindsight, but if I give what I believe is an honest critique of Terry Smith's investments and performance this year, I think he's done a couple things right for the most part. He also has had a couple notable fumbles.